Storybook Conversations, Young Children with Significant Disabilities, presented by Marites Altuna, MS, and Sabrina McAdoo, MED.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the last day of the STEMIEFest and the last session of the day. Today, we are really excited to invite Marites and Sabrina from Kansas School of Blind to come here to talk about storybook conversation for young children with significant disabilities. So my name is Showen, and I'm the moderator of the session. And I am an Asian female. I'm wearing glasses. I have long black hair. I'm wearing red sweatshirt, and I'm sitting at my desk in my home office. Now let's turn it over to Marites and Sabrina to introduce themselves.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having us. My name is Marites Altuna. I am also an Asian female with long black hair and wears glasses. I am wearing a navy blouse, and I am coming to you live from the Kansas State School for the Blind. I am the director of the Kansas Deafblind Project. The Kansas Deafblind Project provides technical assistance to families and educators serving children and youth birth to 21 years old with combined hearing and vision loss. Before my current position, I was a family service coordinator and an early childhood special educator for children ages birth to 5. I was also a teacher for students with visual impairments from preschool to 12th grade.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sabrina McAdoo. I am a Caucasian woman with medium length gray and brown hair, and I wear glasses. I'm wearing a gray top with white print, and I am in my basement at my desk. I'm working currently today. Currently, I work for the Kansas State School for the Blind in the Field Services Department as an early childhood family support specialist. I help to support and provide vision services to children ages birth to 3 who are blind or visually impaired, their families, and their early intervention teams. Prior to working in my current position, I worked as a teacher of students with visual impairments age 3 to 21, and I've also have background as an early childhood special education teacher and family service coordinator with children ages birth to 3.
Thank you for joining Sabrina and me for our session on Storybook Conversations for Young Children with Significant Needs. We hope to provide you with practical strategies and tools that you can use for dialogic reading when engaging young children with significant disabilities, including those with visual impairments or combined hearing and vision loss, also referred to as deafblindness. This brief introduction about dialogic reading is from Connect Modules. You can find more information in the references of our PowerPoint. So dialogic reading is an interactive shared reading that allows children to be active participants in storytelling rather than passive listeners. It has 3 parts. The first part is introducing the book. This is where teachers show the cover, talk about the author, title, and ask a question to generate interest from the children, such as, what do you think the book is about? The second section is reading the book. The teachers will continue to use strategies to encourage participation and discussion, using prompts, evaluating and expanding the child's answers, and repeating the prompts if necessary. The teacher may provide fill in the blanks for sentence completion to encourage appropriate responses. Another strategy is to ask a question to help children remember the story. What happened to the wipers on the bus? As well as utilizing open-ended questions, so children will use their own words when answering. The last component is closing the book. In closing, it is essential to help students connect aspects of the story to their everyday experiences by asking relevant questions. Interactive reading is challenging for some children with sensory or significant disabilities. Therefore, as providers planning instruction, we have to consider what we are teaching, who we are teaching it to, how we will teach it, and how children learn.
So this pyramid from Sky High Institute shows how children with typical development learn. The biggest part is incidental learning, which occurs automatically without a lot of effort, and it is the way that most information is learned. It comes from all of the sensory information that's constantly available to us. 80% of what we learn through our visual system. So we're watching others and we're imitating, and this is a huge part of development, especially in the early years. The next section of the pyramid, which is much smaller, is secondary learning. Secondary learning happens when listening to a person present or teach information. So we're just using our listening skills. Direct learning is the smallest part of the pyramid, and this is hands-on learning.
I move to the next slide.
Yes, next slide.
Hold on. Okay.
Right. Now on this slide, we see that same pyramid from the previous page, but it's inverted to show how children who are deaf-blind learn. They need a much larger portion of their learning to come from direct hands-on experiences and less to come from secondary or incidental learning. Incidental learning helps us make sense of our world. Without incidental learning, words and concepts lack meaning. So we really want to give them more direct teaching in order for them to gain access to those materials. So for example, a child who has a hard time accessing information through their sensory systems like vision, hearing, motor, they may sit at a table and everything's already set up at the table to eat. All the plates, silverware, the cups, the food, everything is there in front of them, or it magically appears. And if they haven't directly experienced going through all of those steps of setting the table, getting the food prepared, maybe going to the cabinets to get the dishes out or the refrigerator to get the milk, they won't understand all those concepts and vocabulary that is involved. So a child who has a typical sensory system, they're able to access all that information just by watching, listening, and using their sensory systems. And they'll be able to imitate and understand those concepts much easier without having to directly learn them. So we're just going to talk about a couple of tools that could be used when reading to children who have significant disabilities. The first picture is a picture of a story box. There are many resources on the internet which provide information about story boxes. Many have specific examples of books that can be used and the objects that could be used to represent them. A story box is basically an assortment of objects which correspond to concepts or vocabulary that are in a book. So in the picture on the slide, the objects that are pictured, we gathered to represent concepts and terms which we used in the book, Rosie's Walk. By having objects available, the child who has difficulty accessing the information by just looking at the book or listening to the book being read by an adult is given the opportunity to explore and get that direct hands-on experience with the actual objects that are referenced in the book. The other two pictures in the slide are of experience books. These are books with actual objects that are constructed with the child after they have had an experience. So for example, in the first picture, it says, "I saw a tree with leaves." So maybe that child went on a walk earlier in the day and came into contact with a tree with leaves on it. So by having some sticks and the leaves on a page with the words, the adult can then review those concepts that were experienced directly by the child on the walk and also provide some repetition of those concepts. If the experience book is also left available, like out on a shelf for the child to go and look at later, then they're also revisiting those same concepts more and more and making those connections in the brain. These tools are great for all kids, not just kids that have significant disabilities. There are many adaptations and strategies that can be used when reading with children who have significant disabilities. We're probably not going to be able to show you all of them or even touch on all of them, but we want to give you some of the main ones. Providing wait time after presenting objects, pictures, or a prompt is very important. There was a study in 2013 from Johnson and Parker in the Journal of Visual Impairment and Blindness that looked at the effects of wait time when communicating with children who have sensory and additional disabilities. This study showed that consistent extended wait time for responses from children with multiple impairments is an effective strategy to use. You will need to know your child's specific communication skills. They might be more subtle than children who have multiple disabilities. So this could include breathing changes or slight motor movements. Making appropriate adaptations to the books being used will be important because these kids don't have access to maybe their vision or hearing or motor skills. And that will have to be individualized depending on the child's needs. So you can adapt books with textures, braille, large print, objects. Those will all help to make materials more accessible. Also, providing multiple copies of the book that you're reading is also sometimes helpful because then that child can have their own copy of the book that is adapted, or also so that they can just have it in a place maybe where they see best. You can simplify books as needed, and for a child who has difficulty turning pages in a book, you can add spacers in between the pages to help them to help turn the pages more easily, which is shown in the picture of the horse. And the picture on that slide shows using binder clips. So those are how we separated the pages for this book. You'll also want to make sure the child you're reading to is in a good supported position so they aren't working so hard on maintaining their physical position and can use all that energy on the direct learning that's taking place with the objects, textures, or books. You'll want to collaborate with your child's physical therapist to determine what the best supported position for your child is. The last picture on the slide is demonstrating hand over hand and hand under hand technique. So those are the two ways that you can assist children in exploring objects by using either your hand over the child's hand or your hand under the child's hand. Hand under hand is very important for children with multiple disabilities or who are visually impaired or blind. It encourages active participation by the child in tasks or exploration when they can't independently do that themselves. It also provides a way for them to pull away if they don't want to engage in the activity. It gives them some control. And because they can pull away from the activity, it helps to decrease tactile defensiveness as well. It also helps to increase their spatial awareness through tactile exploration, and it allows them to experience how other people are using their hands to explore. So you can imagine if you're blind or visually impaired maybe, and you can't see, someone is grabbing your hand and just sticking it in something, that would be kind of scary probably. So having their hand on top of yours to have yours touch whatever it is first is helpful sometimes. Marites, you're muted.
Thank you. Okay. So this is the first component of the three parts of the dialogic reading. This is the introducing the book. And both teachers in the videos are doing just that. So we will look at the video number 1, which is the carrot soup. And in this video, it appears that the children are typically developing. So give me time to show this.
Ready? Here's our story. This is called Carrot Soup. Carrot Soup, and the author and the illustrator is John Segal. Give me a thumbs up if you know this one. Okay, a couple of you seen this. He wrote the words and he drew the pictures. And John Segal. Now, I see a rabbit on the front of this book. That gives me an idea.
I see a dog.
What this book might be about. What do you think is going to happen in this story?
Carrot.
I see some hands. Diego, what's carrot? What about
Yes.
rabbits and carrots? Diego sees rabbits and carrots. Can we put those together and add some more? Joshua, what do you think?
I see a dog.
And what does that tell you is going to be in the story?
A dog. A soup. Because I see a soup in his hand.
You see a soup in his hand. So what does that tell you about the story?
They're going to cut the carrots up and put it in the soup.
Christopher said they're going to cut the carrots up and put it in the soup. Can you tell me again?
And then we'll make it.
What's the rabbit going to do?
Eat the soup.
Eat the soup. That's a good idea. Mariana, I see your hand. What do you think?
He's going to cut the carrots, put them in the soup, cook them. When they're ready, he's going to put them in the plate, and he's going to eat them.
You gave us lots of steps for making carrot soup. Cut the carrots, put them in the plate, cook them, then put them in the plate, and then eat them. Wow. Danny, what do you think?
I think I'm going to maybe after that, I'm going to put the carrots in the
In the oven. Do you think maybe the oven is the place where they're going to cook the carrots? Those are good ideas, guys. Bill, did you have something to add? What?
Maybe the rabbit will pull the carrots out of the garden.
Pull the carrots out of the garden. Why would carrots be in the garden?
Because you grow them. Yeah.
You grow them. Did you want to add to that, Bill? You grow them? Yeah. You're nodding. That means you agree, right?
Again.
Okay, let me start reading, and then if you have more to add, tell me, okay?
So what do you notice are the dialogic reading strategies that the teacher used? You can respond on the general chat, on the chat box. Okay, so the teacher introduced the title and the author. There are some predictions and conversations about the story by just looking at the pictures and looking at the cover. Now let's look at the second video, Rose's Walk. In the recording, the students have visual impairments.
This story has 2 characters in it. One character is a hen. And we learned about hens when we talked about chickens. It's a girl chicken. And she has a comb like a tuck. And she has 2 wings. 1, 2. Like you have 2 arms. Where are your arms?
You told me that.
Yeah, 2 arms. Can kind of be like chicken wings. This story has 2 characters in it. One character is a hen. And we learned about hens when we talked about chickens. It's a girl chicken. And she has a comb like a tuck. And she has 2 wings. 1, 2. Wait, you have 2 arms. Where are your arms?
Exactly.
Yeah, so her arms can kind of be like chicken wings, right? Nice. And she has 2 legs. You have 2 legs. She has 2 legs. Can we do her 2 legs?
I'll hold this for you.
So that's our first character. Do you want to hold the chicken for us?
I'm going.
Oh, that chicken's trying to fly away. I need some help. Will you hold on to her so she doesn't fly away? She's still chicken. Okay. And the other character is a fox. And our fox, this is not a real fox, but this feels like a fox's tail. It's really soft and furry. What do we know about foxes? Do you know anything about foxes?
No. The waddle?
The waddle, yeah, it's her waddle. We don't have waddles. It's kind of underneath her chin.
The fox's tail.
But where's her mouth? She has a beak. So we have a mouth. So chicken has beaks. So it's kind of like a nose and a mouth, kind of, right? And this is from the fox. It's not real. It feels kind of real, though. It feels like it's so soft, isn't it? What do you know about foxes? Do you know anything about foxes? No. They're kind of sly. That's a.
I don't know about
sly means kind of tricky. So the fox in our story is kind of tricky, right? So let's listen. And the chicken, she's a little bit tricky too. She's always trying to fly away, right? So let's see what happens to our fox and our chicken in the story.
So how is Rose's Walk book introduction different from Carrot Soup? What adaptations or strategies did the teacher use to prepare the students for interactive shared reading? The teacher introduced the book by pre-teaching the characters of the story. She allowed the student to explore the objects, and this is important for students to acquire meaning. Hands-on experiences provide meaning to words. The teacher also described essential characteristics. For example, hen is a girl chicken, has waddle and beak, has 2 wings like you have 2 arms, has 2 legs like you. Students learn about different textures and object properties.
This story has 2.
Okay, it's a little bit challenging moving from one video to another. Now, let's look at the second component of dialogic reading, which is reading the book.
It was spring, Rabbit's favorite season. It was time to plant the garden, order carrot seeds, and look forward to enjoying his favorite foods, carrot soup. Rabbit's favorite food is... Everybody say it together. Carrot soup. Good. What is your favorite food?
Carrot
Lily. Noodles. Why are noodles your favorite food?
Well, I just like them.
You like them? Okay. Kelsey, what's your favorite?
All the foods in the whole wide world.
All the foods in the whole wide world. Oh my goodness. Mariana? Spaghetti and meatballs. Why is that?
Because I love it.
You love it. Guys, let's see what Rabbit is going to do next with the carrots. You ready? Rabbit plowed and planted. Rabbit watered and weeded. He waited and waited and waited. Why is Rabbit waiting? Okay. Oh, let's your hand. What is Rabbit waiting for?
The carrot soup.
Waiting for the carrot soup. He's waiting for the carrot soup. I think there's more to add. Diego, what else do you talk about?
You need a special kind of plant food.
Special kind of plant food? What's the plant food for?
Water to grow.
To grow it.
That carrot.
To grow carrots. Dog, somebody's taking all my carrots, said Rabbit. Have you seen them?
It's the cat.
What do you see?
The cat.
The cat. Listen, you can say so
The cat. The cat has them. How did the cat get the carrots? The dog went away.
Christopher thinks the dog pulled them up. Lily says the dog was away. So, which food did Duck say he likes better? Fish or carrots?
Carrots. Fish.
What did you say? Fish. So, if Duck prefers fish to carrots, then the word prefer must mean that he likes one thing better than another, right? I prefer carrots to fish. I like carrots better. But Duck likes fish better. How many people like fish better than carrots? Show me your hand.
I like fish.
Fish? How many people like carrots better than fish?
Fish and carrots.
How many people like Kelsey like both fish and carrots?
I like both.
You like both?
I like
Everybody look at Rabbit's face.
sad.
Why does he feel that way, Alexis?
Because nobody was sharing the carrots with him.
Oh my goodness. And that makes him feel disappointed. Have you ever felt disappointed about anything? Show me a hand if you can tell me something that made you feel disappointed.
Again, what dialogic reading strategies did the teacher use? Sentence completion, prompts, recall, and connection to personal experiences. Now let's look at video number 2, Rosie's Walk.
Rosie walked across the yard. She's walking across the yard and a fox is following her. Now, some things that we find in a yard.
Just go on.
In their yard, there's some grass and some straw and some sticks. She's walking across the yard and her feet are going to touch the straw. Yeah, just like that. And the grass and the sticks. And hidden in the grass.
Her feet hurt.
Oh, yes. Hidden in the grass and the straw and sticks, there's a rake. A rake. What do we use a rake for? Do you know, Nora?
For making sandcastles.
You can. That's a really great use for this kind of rake. A really big rake, though, you use to rake up leaves. And it has metal tongs sometimes, and it can hurt you if you're not careful. You want to be careful. It's a tool that you use in the yard. All right, let's pass it to our friend Nora. So Rosie's walking across the yard, and she's walking over these things. Yes, just like that.
Ow, ow, ow.
Her chicken's feet are really tough. It doesn't hurt her feet.
Nose.
Around the pond. Rosie's walking around the pond. What's a pond?
A pond is where frogs live.
You are right. Frogs live in ponds. And then, you know what? There is a picture of a frog by the pond. Can you find a frog and point to him?
Almost. You found the rock. There's the frog. You
Right.
pointed to the rock that the frog was sitting on. And then you found the frog.
Good looking.
Who's
She's going
That's
up.
the fox.
what is that?
Those are the fox's pointy ears.
I do have like a little toy fox, and he has 2 pointy ears. You feel his pointy ears?
Yeah, and where?
So that's what you saw in the picture. He has 2 pointy ears. Do you have pointy ears?
No.
No, me either. We're not foxes.
No.
Iris, do you want to see my fox? He's got 1, 2 pointy ears. This is a toy fox, and he's chasing after the hen because remember, he likes to eat chickens. He's trying to get the chicken over the haystack. So Rosie's walking over that pile of hay. She's walking right over it. On top of it, you go over the hay. Good looking.
Fly.
Yeah, there's the hay. Rosie's walking over the haystack. And the fox is following. Miss Jean's going to put it on her lap. Oh, the haystack fell on top of the fox. Iris, can I show you? The And they go on top of their fox. Where's your fox? Fox, where are you? Okay. Past the mill, and the windmill has a bag of flour. Do you remember that we made our bread? You weren't here with us that day, Laura. So we made bread, and we used a lot of flour. There was a sack of flour. You know what? It's kind of heavy. I'm going to pass the Iris. Oh, Iris. Oh. Can you pass it to Laura? You can pass it to Laura. She is to your right. That's a good way, Laura. Here it comes. There. Oh, hold on. Okay. Is it heavy? Yeah, it is kind of heavy. Yeah. And it's got flour in it. We use it to make bread. Can you pass it to Jillian? Through the fence. Rosie's walking through the fence. It's a wooden fence. So there's like a little slat in the fence. A slat is like a space. A space, Iris, can I show you? My fingers are a space. Yeah, you found the space.
I want to take
Yes, and Rosie's going to slide right in through the slats. Can you slide Rosie through the slats? She's going to go through the fence. Oh, good job, Rosie. She's trying to get away from that fox. Oh, the fox tried to go through the fence, but he fell in a wagon. He's still chasing Rosie. That sly fox.
Why is he still chasing Rosie?
Do you remember? Why does the fox want to catch Rosie?
Because he wants to eat everybody.
He wants to eat Rosie under the beehive. Rosie is walking under the beehive. Remember when we talked about bees, and that's where bees keep their honey? It has lots of little. That's where the bee would be hiding. And Rosie walks under the beehive. Can I show Iris? Can I show Rosie? Oh, hold on to her so she doesn't fly away. She's going to go under the beehive. Under the beehive. Wow. Rosie's going under. She's going to come find Nora. Nora can sit down on your bottom, please. Rosie's going to come find you. She's going under the beehive. Oh, hold on to her for me.
You're touching the beehive. Yeah.
Thank you, Iris.
The teacher in video number 2 is still pre-teaching concepts and vocabulary from the story. The students are examining objects from the story box, labeling, exploring the items, and having the characters act out prepositions. Reading the book could be longer for students with significant disabilities because it takes more time to figure out what an object or shape is through tactile exploration than through vision. A tactile learner needs to examine parts of an item separately and then put the information they have gathered together to gain a full understanding of the item. If a child cannot explore the object independently due to motor difficulty or resistance to touching unfamiliar objects, encourage the child to try by using hand-under-hand guidance. Engaging young children with significant disabilities in dialogic reading involves planning, multiple opportunities for shared reading, and repeated exposure to concepts in meaningful context. In addition, specific adaptations or accommodations may be necessary. Providing access to information through our sensory channels, hearing, vision, or touch is crucial.
Rosie,
So we have a few just follow-up questions or discussion kind of lead-ins for you guys just to think about. What other activities during the day could you provide to reinforce the concepts that were shown in Rosie's walk? So you guys can probably think of more things, but some things that I thought of were, like we talked about, the experience book. So you could create an experience book depending on what concepts you're teaching. They could actually have experiences with maybe some real chickens or real hens, the eggs, all that kind of stuff that they don't know that because they haven't seen it. And then also, if you have a child who has multiple impairments, who maybe isn't as mobile, you could set up an obstacle course or some physical situations in order for them to experience those positional concepts that are being referred to in the book, like under and around and between. And so you could set up so that the child is actually experiencing those actions with their own body. What other types of objects could you use to represent some of the vocabulary related to the story? So there's tons of manipulatives and things out there that you can get to represent the vocabulary in that book. One thing, she had a plastic rake, so maybe possibly having them, see a real rake, a bigger rake, to see actually the size of what it would really be. Having some water in a tub to represent the pond, those types of things would be things that you could add. And then how could you involve families, caregivers, or providers in reinforcing the child's learning? One of the ways might be to communicate with the families what concepts that are being taught so they can reinforce those at home, giving them ideas of how they could reinforce those concepts. And then also, if you are creating experience books or adapting the books at school, maybe letting the family borrow that to have it at home for that repeated exposure and the pre-teaching of some of those concepts. Okay. I think the next slides I saw there, and I don't know if Shu-Lin is going to say this, but there was a question about resources. And so we have resources listed on this slide. There are places that you can go to get examples of story boxes. One of my favorite websites is Paths to Literacy, and they have a whole section on story boxes. So it gives you a good description and gives you good examples of how you can incorporate story boxes into kids' learning.
What Sabrina was talking about, one question is about where to get the resource or some suggestions for the story box example. So Sabrina provides some resource. And then for STEMI, we also have a storybook tip sheet that you can download, which I already copied. We already entered the links in the chat box. So feel free to check it out. We have some suggestions for the story box that you can include and you can provide for each storybook. Or each STEM related storybook. And so we also have a question about Marites and Sabrina. People are really like the Roses Walk video example. And then just wanted to give everyone the heads up that this is a collaboration effort between the Kansas School for the Blind and STEMI, and we're actually really working on making this video public available for everyone. So just stay tuned for our notification, for our update on our website. So we have a few more minutes. Feel free to type in your question in the chat box or in the Q&A box. I'm going to see if we have another question. So, okay, we have another question about dialogic reading usually require multiple reads. Will you use the prompts for each read?
Do you want me to get this, Sabrina?
Sure, if you want to.
I would. The first initial reading was introducing the vocabulary of the story. And the next rereading, you could incorporate it also so that multiple repetition and experiences will be provided to the students.
Okay. Thank you, Marites. So we also have another example about teaching color. So color could be a potential and a possible important concept when we are thinking about STEM learning, right? So how can we, Marites, okay, how can we teach children with visual impairments or children with significant disabilities about color concepts? Do you have any suggestions or guidance for our audience here?
I can kind of address that a little bit. I think, well, with kids with visual impairments, for sure, they'll probably be using more of their auditory system. So I think that if you are exploring objects that maybe could be different colored, so for instance, apples don't always have to be red. They can be green or yellow. And so I think if you're just really just describing that and letting kids know that leaves aren't always green that are on a tree. They just need to understand that and be able to generalize that there are other colors that things can be. It doesn't have to be a red apple, which is what I think kids are taught first. And they may hear that first or be described, the object is described that way, but then being sure that we are expanding those concepts so that they know that there are other ways to describe them. So most kids that have multiple impairments have varying degrees of sensory loss. So usually they have some vision or some hearing. So I don't know if Marites, do you have anything to add?
I agree with Sabrina. We also have to look at the vision and the sensory loss condition of the student and see how we can best teach them with the colors.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a really good point too, that you have to know the child and what sensory system they're using primarily or secondary. If you know that information, then that helps you to make those accommodations and adaptations to whatever materials you're presenting.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think, I learned something. So that was great. Clarification and then some tips and strategies for teachers and practitioners in this session. So I also have a question. So when reading books for children with visual impairment, do you usually use a commercially available books or you create your own books? If you're doing the storybook reading sessions and you're reading your own books, do you have any suggestion or advice for the families here or for the practitioner here to really thinking about how to embed STEM learning concept if you're creating your own book?
So I think you can use both. You can use books that are commercially available or make your own. I think if you're using a commercially available book, you would adapt it to however that child needs to access that information. So just like what we talked about, providing textures or objects, braille, whatever they need to access that material is what you're going to want to do. So like if I were reading a book about bubbles with a kid, then I want to let them experience bubbles in different ways so that they kind of understand that concept.
You can create an experience book around blowing bubbles. And I think that would be so much fun.
Yeah.
Or playing.
And there's different types of bubbles. There's bubble wrap, there's blowing bubbles. I mean, there's all sorts of concepts that go along with that.
Yeah, that sounds great. It sounds really fun. Like I feel like, I wanted to watch a video or really see that using a bubble or create your own book by using the bubble. So yeah, so we also have one more question. So we know that technology is another new avenue to support learning. So for this, for supporting children with visual impairments, how can technology tool play a role in assisting children with visual impairments? Do you have any advice or have any suggestion or any thoughts that you can share with our audience here?
I think thinking that technology can be both high tech and low tech. And sometimes when we think of technology, we just go, okay, we want to do something that's for robotics. Right? There are kids that does robotics at a very young age. So being mindful of preparing the student to have the concept to be able to learn, for example, how to code and what are our problem solving, that's our exploration. And also technology plays a key role now in the future. It provides opportunities for young people to have a job. And what a wonderful way to learn them than exposing them when they're very young. For example, keyboarding. It's important for kids who are visually impaired to learn how to do keyboarding so that they can communicate, they can search the internet, they can do other things in terms of communication and reaching out to the world. Sabrina, have anything to add?
I don't think so. We added a resource too about low tech things that could be used, especially like when I talked about the binder clips, to help kids to turn pages in a book. I mean, turning pages in a book and learning the parts of a book are really important too. So there's different ways that you can adapt things using low tech items that don't cost a lot of money.
Thank you so much.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I like the pre-coding skills for young children to prepare them for possible careers. So when they get older, they're not afraid of technology because they grow up with it.
Yes. Thank you so much. I think that's wonderful. And talk about pre-coding skills and the future of technology, right? So thank you so much for Marites and Sabrina's to join us today. And then Marites, if you can stop sharing screen so we can play the closing remarks, that will be great. And then thank you so much for coming to our last session of the day. And then thank you so much for coming to our session.
Hi, I'm Larry Wexler. I'm the director of OSEP's Research to Practice Division. I oversee IDEA Part D discretionary grants and investments and the IDEA data. I'm sitting in my home office in the lower level of my house. There's a child's basketball hoop behind me. I'm a gray-haired guy with a gray beard. Some might describe it as white. And I'm of the age where I should have gray hair and a gray beard. I'd like to start out by thanking Tracy Dixon, who is the STEMI project officer. She's not only a terrific project manager, she's also a thought partner who has added dramatically and positively to the operation and the development of this project. STEMI was ahead of its time. We conceptualized it 6 years ago, thinking it would drive the inclusion of STEM into early childhood curriculum, but more importantly, to drive thinking about how it's simply never too early to address complex concepts with very young children. Now, I have a grandson, Logan, who's 3.5. The other day, he was going down the big sliding board at his preschool and noticed his hair was flying, a kind of Albert Einstein look. That became a lesson in static electricity at his childcare center that they engaged the children in. Recently, I was requested by my daughter to buy him something called Magnetiles. I couldn't believe the concepts he learned related to building and shapes, balance and bracing. Heck, I thought Lincoln Logs. Yes, I'm dating myself. I thought Lincoln Logs were complex. In speeches that I give, I frequently quote Michelangelo. 600 years ago, he said, "The trouble with mankind is not that they aim too high and fail, but rather that they aim too low and succeed." STEMI is all about high expectations for young children, expectations that they are capable of mastering complex concepts at a very young age. Heck, when my kids were Logan's age, our most complex expectation was that they not eat too much Play-Doh. This year's STEMIEFest truly lived at the intersection of research and practice, both with fascinating scholarly information and practical, action-oriented resources. Doctors Doug Clements and Julie Sarama set the stage by showing us the importance of starting with children's natural way of thinking and ways to support their development of STEM concepts and processes through intentional planning and individualization of environments, routines, and activities. We also heard from Doctors Vivian Chung, Hobie Wedler, and Tia Holmes, successful STEM professionals with disabilities, on how the only barrier to their journey is ableism. And from Dr. Harriet Abel and her son, Matt, the importance of starting with the end in mind. Throughout the 5 days, we were reminded by presenters how important it is to be intentional in cultivating inclusive STEM learning opportunities, and we also learned practical strategies for how to engage children with and without disabilities in playful and meaningful STEM experiences. OSEP and the STEM Innovation for Inclusion in Early Education Center appreciate your dedication and commitment to early STEM learning. STEMI has been continuing to build the knowledge around high-quality, inclusive STEM experiences for young children with and without disabilities. Their development of a set of tools known as learning trajectories will have a big impact on the field. Comprised of benchmarks, the development of children's thinking between the benchmarks and connected learning experiences, materials, and games. Learning trajectories enable families and early childhood professionals to implement high-quality, experiential STEM learning for young children. We look forward to supporting this important initiative to ensure that no child will be denied the opportunity to engage in meaningful STEM experiences. Thank you for participating in STEMIEFest 2021. We look forward to seeing everyone again at STEMIEFest 2022. To conclude, let's listen to some music courtesy of MakerFest. Thank you. Have a great day.